Hello? Wait, can you see me live? Oh no, it's not live yet. Hmm. Wait a second. Let me see. Kaylani, can you type a message? Hey y'all, here we go again with foolishness. Facebook has this new live, and I'm not sure that I can see the chat. Kaylani, can you type in a message so I can see if I see it? Let me know when you do it. Oh, okay. Thank you, Tina. Oh, it's on the left hand side. Okay, thank you, love. Okay. All right. Okay. We're gonna wait till 2 more minutes before we get started. Do I sound loud enough? Okay. I just want to make sure that I'm loud enough because I'm chilling in the casa. We're about to talk about Toni Morrison, The Pieces I Am documentary. I have a couple of notes that I wanted to share with you all um, before we get started. Well, as we go along. I'm so excited to talk about. I don't typically talk about film or documentary, even though documentaries are one of my absolute favorite things in the entire world. Um, I'm not a big movie watcher though, so I don't really talk about that. But this month I figured we needed a little break from all this sad stuff. All right, Charmaine, tell the people about your products. We have Charmaine Gentles in our comments. She has the African waist beads. She makes jewelry. She makes body products. She does natural hair. She's an educator. So Charmaine, if you can drop your contact information in the comment section. Hey, Selena sis, if you can drop your contact information in the comment section, then people can get in touch with you. Again, she sells natural body products, well, natural like waist beads and jewelry. I've seen her do her jewelry. And then I know she does natural hair. Um, okay, Selena says she makes amazing men's jewelry. So that is a, yeah, we always want to make sure that we amplify Black businesses on here as well. What's the purpose of a platform if you don't share it with everybody? Hey, Tammy. Hey, Rachel. Hey, Christian. Not my son, Christian. My bonus somebody, Christian Wheaty. Hello. Yes, Charmaine, drop that information in there. Selena is giving you a shout out about, I just tagged my cousin in one of her posts about the African waist beads. People love those too. Okay, so all right, y'all. So I wanted to take a break. I always have to shout out always the Lyle Branch Library and their head librarian, the library manager, Shamika Fusco, who partnered with me for the Soulstainable Living Online Literary Circle. And one of the things that it was important for us to come together was to provide a space for us to have discussions about books. Okay, my little youngest son, Christian, is in here. Good stuff. So when we got together, the books that I had selected are all classic books. They're all wonderful books, but one of the problems is that there's a lot of sadness, a lot of sorrow, a lot of death, a lot of violence, a lot of trauma, which is not something I ever am afraid of walking into or discussing. But I just feel like for this particular season, we have so much real life trauma, so much real life oppression, so much real life sorrow that I wanted to take a break from the pre-scheduled stories that I had already selected and find something that was about joy and about life and about laughter and about love and about growing and about becoming. And so I've been trying to find some really good, books that don't have anything to do with trauma or enslavement. And it's really difficult. It's really difficult to find those books that are curated by Black people. So I've been reading a lot of children's books and young adult books and middle grade books in order to get to books that are not as heartbreaking. So I decided this month, when PBS just announced the other day that they were live streaming the video, Toni Morrison's documentary, I decided, you know what? Why not? Mika and I talked about it and we thought it was a good idea and we needed more Black joy. I want to take a quick program pause and just shout out Island Gal Jewelry and Creations on Facebook and Instagram. It's ISLANDGYAL AL Jewelry and Creations, and that's Charmaine's business if you all are interested in liking her page. I just felt like it's just so important that if we have Black creators on here, that we share their platform. So please, if you have a something that you're trying to promote, drop it in the comments section so people can purchase it or support it or whatever. So before we really get into the discussion, and it doesn't matter if you haven't watched the video. I know my friend, shout out to Rachel de Guzman, 21st Century Arts. I want We've watched the documentary several times. I purchased it on Amazon when it first came out, and then I watched it again, and then I watched it again today. And but there are themes that are present in the store, in the documentary, that I just feel like we can just talk about as a collective. So for those of you who have never been on one of these before, how it is that I'll just start talking and I'll ask you questions, and you can drop something down. um Hey Karen, you can drop something down in the comments section, okay? I also want to tell you about the Soulstainable Living Presents the Black Healing Project. I'm finishing up my workbook, so that'll be coming to you soon. I really think it's so important that we talk about all the things that ail our community, but we also have to talk about Black healing. And because we've fallen apart, and I mean on an individual level, and we're doing so many things that we need to do, of course, to protest and to, fight for our rights and our freedoms. But one of the things that we may not always remember is that we need to cultivate spaces of joy, of laughter, of love, of healing that are not trauma inspiring or trauma inducing. And so the Sustainable Living Presents Black Healing Project will be a space for that. It'll be an 8-week curriculum for us all to be able to work together. The only cost is for you to buy the workbook. I can't give it to you, but other than that, the program in and of itself is free. The materials is just something that you can do to work alongside of us, and it'll be a multi-platform endeavor. I'll be partnering with some organizations, partnering with some other creatives, partnering with some other healers. And yeah, just looking forward to doing something that will help heal the Black community. All right. Toni Morrison. Oh, Toni Morrison. Toni Morrison. I love Toni Morrison. Full disclosure, I love Toni Morrison. And when my husband and I were courting, he gave me a Toni Morrison quote from my favorite book, Beloved, Beloved, Love Beloved. And it was something that Sixo said about the woman that he was in love with. So the quote is, "She is a friend of my mind. She gathered me, man. The pieces I am, she gathered them and give them back to me in all the right order. It's good, when you got a woman who is a friend of your mind." Ah, oh, Mika, we'll talk. So let me just talk about that quote, because the quote inspires, well, the name of the documentary is Inspired the Pieces That I Am. Now, you have a person who was enslaved, who was walking a long distance to see this woman, and he only had enough time to walk there, give her a kiss, and walk back home, and so he could begin work the next morning, right? But there is something so very real on a molecular level about human love and connection. And Nikki Giovanni told us that Black love is Black wealth, right? So even in the middle of this terrible time, and she was love. Oh, Martha, we're going to get to that. And she was love, yes. So you have love always emerging as a theme. And I want to just show you the books that I have at home from Toni Morrison. I have Tar Baby. I have Song of Solomon. Oh, why do I have two Tar Babies out? Okay, so I got double copies of a lot of stuff. I tried to grab the things from one shelf. Um, the Bluest Eye, Home, Beloved is my favorite. I have The Origin of Others, God Bless the Child. We did a book talk on that before. I have A Mercy, The Source of Self-Regard, which is also I have this on an audiobook. The Black Book. So for those of you who watch the documentary, you'll see a lot of images from this book in the documentary, and it just gives a look at the Black experience. I also have children's books. I got more Toni Morrison books, but this was just one shelf. I didn't want to. Now I got, well, my kids, I'm going to make them put them back. So Please Louise, The Tortoise and the Hare. I'm reading this. I have this on Instagram. I mean, on YouTube. I read it, and then this one right here. So that's just a little bit of the many Toni Morrison books that I have, and she's always been important to me because as a Black woman, I read Beloved when it first came out. I was far too young to read it, and it absolutely blew my mind, and it gave me language bigger than myself. I did not have anything to do with all of those words. I didn't have anything to do with all of that love for self because I didn't know it. It wasn't represented necessarily in the things that I saw in school. It wasn't represented in the books that I saw. And so Toni Morrison for me was a language bringer. And she gave me something that I had not grown up into yet. And so when we talk about legacy and bequeathing things to people, Cameron is right. You can go right to any bookstore and order it offline. It's a beautiful book. I think they have it in the library too, but it's a beautiful, beautiful book, a reference book. But when we look at Toni Morrison's life, we know that she has been very, very, very private. And so for me, seeing the pieces I am was very instructive for me as a woman to hear her talk about her sexuality. Oh, I was very loose. She says that, and it's like, but it's like, you know what? She's free. And we don't always look at Black women and girls as being free. So today in our healing discussion, we're going to focus on the positive elements, the things that might be spaces that might be broken spaces for us, but that we know that we need to work towards, right? So let's jump into this thing. Let me pull up my notes because there are a few things that I want to talk about. And Martha, we definitely going to talk about that ending, especially when Sonia Sanchez says that she was loved and she was loved and she was loved. Beloved is such a relatable experience for me as a mother and a healing for that expression of grief, love, sacrifice, self determination, and profound desire for self ownership. Okay, Martha is a regular, so she knows how we get down here. So she's talking about Beloved. And a lot of the documentary focused on, some of her works, but Beloved was one of the ones because she won a Nobel Prize for it. And it really ushered into another category. But Martha, can we talk a little bit more? And for those of you who are on this chat, particularly, Black women, or Black people in general, when you love yourself, and you own yourself, and not in a way that means a dollar amount. Like, we're not talking about enslavement, we're not talking about property ownership. We are talking about full personhood and being the you that you had envisioned for yourself, and what that process for you was like. um, I'll tell my own story in this space, that I've always been very confident, whatever that means externally. And I've never suffered from low self esteem, but I had a lot of trauma in my life and I didn't know what to do with my full self. So when I watched this documentary, what it showed me is that it's okay to grapple with the inside parts, that you can live with your outlines, and that doesn't mean that you don't have anything that's worthwhile, or that you're not trying to be more of yourself. It just means that sometimes who you are is shaped before you can even understand the scope of what that means. And what I see in Toni Morrison is that she knew herself, but she had to grow into the understanding of what that self means. And she said claiming that freeing yourself is one thing, but claiming ownership of that freed self is another. Is a quote that I often think about with Toni Morrison, and particularly with Beloved. Um, but when I look at her, and I never opened up my notes, right? I'm so busy talking. So one of the first things that Toni Morrison talked about in the documentary was family history and family legacy. So I want you all to share, or any of you to share, something positive that's a family history or a family legacy. Now, I'm going to tell you, my friend Rachel that's on here sends me pictures of her family all the time, going back several generations, and I'm obsessed with her family history, right? And it's big and magnificent. And then we talked about my family history, and she's like, it's big and magnificent. And there are sometimes things that we don't see as prideful, or things that we can take pride or ownership of. So I'm going to write down that my grandmother had elementary school education. She managed to adopt, well, she adopted me and she raised several generations of our family, but she also owned a restaurant, Blue Flame, that was across the street from Jordan Health Center in Rochester, New York. And she did this as a single mother. And so sometimes when we look at Black success, we don't necessarily celebrate our families who may have had a lot of ways to get over, right? So for me, I want to just celebrate my grandmother Marie Young, and just, she'll be 93 this 4th of July. So yep, we will be celebrating the 4th of July. Yep, we celebrated Juneteenth too, but it's her actual birthday. But when I think about her life, I just want to acknowledge the fact that her joy and her success are some of the reasons that I'm here today. And I'm not necessarily sure if we acknowledge those things enough. And so, Martha, to harken back to that profound desire for self ownership, that is something that was really integral to my grandmother's own personal development. She came up here from the South. And I think that when we look at Toni Morrison's life and we look at her family history, and she talks about her grandmother and she talks about her father and mother and how they wanted her to read and to know the Bible and to be proud of herself. And so those are the things that we can see that are connective tissue in the ways that Toni Morrison loves Black people, in the way that she loves to write our stories, in the way that she is not concerned with the white gaze. And I got to spell this out because last time somebody thought I was saying Gays, and I'm saying white gaze as in a look, Gaze. And what that simply means is that um, in our world, we center white people. And she made a mention of, she didn't write her books thinking about how white people would respond to them. She wrote her books to be free. So, oh, Philippa, right on point. Philippa says, what struck me was Toni talking about, quote, the white man's gaze and how professionally I've been trying to change my professional voice. So, Philippa, tell us what that looks like for you. How do you pull Toni Morrison's legacy of avoiding the white gaze or deconstructing it into your own professional life and finding your voice? And while you think of that, I'm going to read Charmaine's comment. And one of the reasons I read the comments is because when you play the video back, you don't always have, like if you cast it, you don't always see the comments. And so I want you to know what folks have said. My grandmother and mother both gifted me with a powerful ministry with their pure relationship with God. That's what Charmaine is saying. Thank your grandmother and your mother and you for sharing that. And Martha says she, meaning Toni Morrison, is unadulterated in her expression of lived Black experiences. And so we have these three spaces. We have this finding your voice that Philippa offers. We have Charmaine talking about the matrilineal line of her family, giving her this love of God and this powerful ministry. And we have Martha reminding us that Toni Morrison always has loved Black people. Um, Eileen says, I cannot think of anything, but myself and my cousin started a family book club. And Eileen, I gotta talk about you to the people. Eileen is a powerful educational activist. And when she lived here, her daughter Breezy, who was a teenager, it was one of my little best friends. And really just the way that she loves other people's children and really wanting them to do more. She came on my radio show and talked about that as well. And so just being able to create a movement of literacy and education is something that I see. Philippa says she's talking back in her research. Her research is valid, especially scholarship of Black people. Let me tell you something. I'm a college professor and I'm a doctoral student. And the folks in the academy will have you questioning whether or not Black people are a valid field of study. And absolutely they are. We are here. We built this country. We built the world. Black people invented everything. And so Toni Morrison's voice is always one that reminds us that we have to look past other people's expression of who they think we are. And we have to just know it's that unadulterated love of Black people that Martha's talking about. Tiana says, my grandfather, a Vietnam vet, sharing his stories about the segregated South, war, and moving to Rochester. His history was profoundly complex, interesting, and so warm. Circling around to listen to his experiences were raw and powerful. He taught me the importance of speaking up and being the expert in your own life. Yes, 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 yes. So when you think about your own life and you think about the ways that the world right now is responding to Blackness, we have Black Lives Matter. We have all Black Lives Matter. We have people pushing back against that. We have folks protesting on the other side. We have curriculums being dismantled. We have people wanting to be racist, anti-racism educators. And so, what do they really love Black people? Are they really encouraged to change laws and policies and procedures that impact Black people, right? So those are the things that we have to look for as part of our healing. Like, yeah, we're gonna go out there, you know my line, we're gonna get free, but we ain't gonna die trying, you know. And so it's really important that in that we are holding our policy holders, our politicians, our policy makers, those people who can really enact some change that is on a legal level. Like, I really want the college that we go to say Black people don't have to pay tuition for this grad program. And Tiana's also a doctoral student. She says the folks in the academy speak to that. We have PhDs in our experiences. If you Black, you know Black. Like, you know Black, and there's no one way to be Black, but sometimes we privilege a certain type of Black, you know. And I always want to make sure that people know that there's no hierarchy in the ways that we love Black people. Oh yeah, Martha. Now Martha is a good cook. This is what she said. For me, it's my father's cooking and my grandmother's name. My father is so much older that so many of my older relatives have been deceased long before I had an opportunity to meet them and hear their stories. Martha, if you start that catering company again, drop the name, or if you have a Facebook page, drop that in the comments. So for her, her connection to her legacy of her family is cooking and food. And I'm a cooker, right? I'm a cooker. I'm a chef. And I believe that food is a carrier of culture. It's a way to have connection. It's an expression of, who you are and how you love. And there's so many times that Black people are criticized for having high fat diets, or, but what we don't understand is there is beauty in our food stories. You can travel the world if you look at many of our family reunion plates. If you look at collard greens and, cornbread, and that's just the American South. But my friend Selena in here, we always talk about, callaloo. And so if you have meat, cornbread, or collard greens and her callaloo, we can walk the world on our plates. And so, how many of you, if we're talking about love, and if we're talking about joy, and if we're talking about healing, how many of you have looked at your food as medicine? How many of you have looked at your food as your family story? How many of you have looked at your food as a way for you to bring connection between that generation to this generation to the next generation? Or do we give up so many of our Black things? Do we worry about eating fufu, or do we worry about eating gumbo? Do we worry about eating watermelon because somebody else has made a negative comment about how Black people eat the worst foods, and even though they make them good? And what I want to give us today is that we can love ourselves through our food language, through cooking, through food, sharing meals together. It's always a way that we commune together. Martha says, "It is my ministry of my love, healing and expression of my creativity, the ability to create magic with spices and herbs and foods." And she does. She shares such wonderful pictures of her food on her Facebook page. And there's a group on Facebook when my girlfriend Tanya started, I Love Grub, and we really don't take food as a measure of culture enough that we should. Selena says, "Yes, I sure do. Island food binds us deeply and speaks to rich lineage." Yes. So when we think about whatever Black food is across the diaspora, we have to be mindful that there is something to be said in our food talk with each other, and we don't have to identify it as negative or high fat or low quality. We know some people in this generation don't eat some things that our grandparents ate, and that's fine. But just because you have a new way of living or a different palate now does not mean that we discard the things that provided sustenance for many of us when there was nothing else, right? And so it's so important that we remember to talk about food as culture, food as love, food as legacy, food as healing. Okay, I want to go to the next thing. Child raising. So one of the things that Toni Morrison also talked about in this documentary was her raising her children. and how her husband had left her, their father had left her, and she had to raise two young sons. And she said it was terrible, and it was hard. I want to read what Kaylani said. Cooking is big for us as a family. It's a big thing. I always remember having family cooking nights. Anytime that grandma, you, and all of us got in the kitchen, we still cook together. Martha says, watermelon is a manifestation of black folks' entrepreneurial spirit, unwillingness to be broken. The narrative regarding these things um, is to diminish. Watermelons brought us a measure of self-sufficiency to us. Food is language. And then Selena saying Martha say that. And Charmaine is like, Selena's correct. I love how my cooking brings our folks together, especially when we have discussions about how recipes came about. So when we think about food sliding into raising children and raising our families, you know, what have you learned if you're a parent or as a child or whatever, that those family connections, like what lessons have you brought forth in your family dealing with young people? Now, that intergenerational connection is so important. We may not always look at youth culture as significant. And I'll use an example. I'm a mom of a 27-year-old, a 22-year-old, and a 20-year-old. And last night, we let the one person who can come in our house who's 25, was a former student who became one of my mentees, who became a daughter niece, who became best friends with my daughter and my sons. And she was over here till 5 something this morning. But I was telling the kids that I was grateful that I could be amongst them as young people. And I think that when Toni Morrison is talking about her children, right? And understanding that she could not do it alone. And so for me, when I think about being a mother and not being able to do it alone, I'm blessed that I had a child young, and that father decided that he did not want to be a part of the child's life, whether it was by whatever. And I met another man who became my husband. We had two other children, and he picked right into being a father for the first child. And together we've raised these three children, right? And one of the things that I've always been grateful for is that looking at these kids, they've always been their full selves, and we understood that they were ours only in the sense that we had given birth to them, but in the scope of the universe, they didn't belong to us. So when Toni Morrison says that she recognized that she needed help raising her children, that is such a profound statement, because so many times we only think of women in the role of mothers, right? And so I think that we have to remember that motherhood is a role. It's a title, but it's also a role. And this was a woman who put her children above everything, because she says that she made a list, and on that list she had to decide what things were important to her. One of those things was writing, and the other thing was mothering her children. And so when she wrote, she never closed her door. She never shut her children out of her life, but that came at an expense for her. And she recognized that she needed help. And so thinking about that, I want to say one of the things that I wish I would have done a lot more when my kids were younger is that I wish that I would have let a couple of people watch them. Some of my girlfriends, because I always watched everybody's children, and people wanted to do for me what I had done. And I don't mean just random folks watching my kids, because I don't believe that at all. But I had some very good girlfriends, but because of my own trauma that I experienced as a child, I wasn't so willing to have people, watch my children or babysit them. But I think in a different sort of way, my girlfriends would have appreciated that. So I wish that I would have, even if I didn't need it, because I was a stay-at-home mom and my grandmother was here all the time. And Kevin has always been a very active parent, very active father. And but I think that there's some community that's built with sharing your children with people who love them. And I've always shared other people's children. Like I've always been that person. And so Toni Morrison reminds us that we can let other people love our children and help us with our children. Eileen says, when I homeschool Breezy, I use cooking as a teaching tool. Now she thinks she's a chef and I'm her helper. Many times I find myself developing my own parenting approaches and tradition. My village is strong, and I find myself using my childhood as a way to not rear and communicate with my children. So, Eileen, thank you for that. I want to talk about when I met Eileen's daughter. So I'd seen her a couple of times. I met her. She was probably like 11 years old, 12. We had seen her out in some community things. Shout out to We All Right. We had done an event, a work hop, not a workshop, but a work hop at a black festival. And her daughter came up to me, but then they came to my house and we sat on this couch up under a blanket and just loved. And Eileen was like, she don't do that with people. I was like, well, she know good people. And I was just so glad and grateful that she shared her daughter with me, and I'm not sure if enough that we love on black children enough, and we don't let them, and I mean in healthy ways. Charmaine says, I'm also blessed to have had a village of wonderful women who took care of my son when I got too overwhelmed. Thank you, Charmaine, for that. Um, and the reason I bring it up is because we, as black women in particular, have always been caretakers for everybody's children. Whether we're wet nursing, whether we're, day help, whether, somebody in the village just decided that you're a mama or an auntie and you become the mother. What what I want to say to us is that in Toni Morrison's words, there's a recipe in there for healing. Charmaine just told us too that she called on the people that she needed when she became overwhelmed. And in a healing village, there's no shame about feeling overwhelmed. There's no shame, as Eileen is talking about, using her child as a way to not rear her three children and communicate with them, right? So we can take the things that have been done to us, and we don't have to perpetuate this idea that all black people got whoopings growing up. I never got a whooping. I was really good, really, really, really good. Um, and I wish that I would have known enough when my kids were younger. I love you. Oh, she's talking to Charmaine. Okay, well, you love each other. Well, y'all go ahead and love each other in the chat. Um, but I never whooped my kids, but they got a couple of spankings. But I wish that I knew enough, not to spank them, and I decided very quickly that that wasn't going to be a way that we parented because it wasn't necessary, and I always tell parents that when we communicate with adults, we would never put our hands on another adult, well, unless you're an abuser, and think that was acceptable. So we sometimes do that to children. We're bigger than them. We have more power than them. And, we still want to um, show our power. And I just think that we need to find different ways to communicate. So sometimes the village has to be watchful. So Toni Morrison was able to call on her mother, her father, her brothers, her sisters to help her. But sometimes people just don't have that in them. So we may have to slide in the village and say, sis or brother, there's single fathers and mothers and fathers and aunties and grandmamas in the village and say, you know what? I see you. I see you need some help with those kids. And I'm a super auntie. I have so many nieces and nephews that are not biologically related to me, and I'm very proud of that. Um, but it just means to me that the village is so important, and the only way that you know somebody is biologically related to you is if you take a blood test. And 99% of us are not taking blood tests. We're relying on somebody else's word that that's our mama, because how many of you have seen baby pictures of yourself when you're being delivered? And so I just think that the bounds of family can be so extreme. And so if you take a lesson from the documentary, please allow yourself to be free from the idea that you have to do it all, that you have to parent alone. I say that there's no single parents in the village, and I mean that. I mean that if your household does not have whatever the thing is that you deem to be enough, then you reach out. Reach out to me, reach out to other people that are doing the things parent wise that you want to do. But we can find a lot of healing for ourselves within our cultural villages and amongst people that we may not necessarily have thought we had things in common with. Oh, Tiana, let me talk about her. I am not biologically related to you, but you still madre. So listen, Tiana and I met in our doctoral program, and she's the same age as my firstborn son, and we have bonded. I met her husband first, and that's my child. I really feel connected to her. I have Tempest and I have Gigi, and Deja, and these young ladies are part of my family. And there's not anything that I would not do for them that I would not do for my biological children. And I try not to make that distinction between them. So I'm grateful that you trusted me enough to welcome me in your heart. Martha says, in my village, I am the mother, the midwife, the cook, the protector and provider, and it becomes overwhelming. And so, Martha, the call to the village is that you do a lot, and how can the village be of assistance to you? And it's not necessarily just biological, because you have twins, you got a bunch of little kids over. There's what, one, two, three, four, and five of them. I think you got four daughters and a son. I don't know, maybe you got five. I feel like there's five. You got a set of twins. I feel like there's five. But so how do we, as a village, if we see one of our siblings in the village being overwhelmed with their children, how can we help, right? And so please let people in. Oh, Eileen says, Takia Graham, love you, mean it. You helped me accept my son. So many times I avoided you, but today my son and I have a great bond and relationship. You helped me realize so much, and I appreciate you. Oh, I ain't gonna tell Eileen's business. I'm gonna say that we worked hard on her accepting her son. And I tell anybody, if you have any challenges with parenting, parenting is one of the things that I do extremely well. Please reach out to me. I'm truly judgment free when it comes to parenting, because look, we don't know how to do it. And I know, like, my kids got some band-aids on them, but I've really given the best of myself to them. And so if there's any parenting issue that you struggle with, please reach out to me. I promise you that I will use all of my resources to assist you get some balance, because we don't know it all by ourselves. Yep, four girls and one boy, Martha. That's what I thought. Okay. And so you know, for those of us who, I never had my mother, I never had my father. Like, my mother texts me every day, but I wasn't raised by her. And my father, I mean, I didn't meet him until I was 17, and and so I mean, my grandmother loves me dearly, but I've never called anyone mom or anything like that. And don't cry. Well, you can cry. It's okay. You can cry tonight. But I think that what Toni Morrison did is something that I think my mother did with me, at least. She asked for help. And I'm always grateful to my grandmother, because she answered the call. She sent my aunt to go get me. And so we recognize sometimes that these children are overwhelmed. These parents are overwhelmed in the village. Okay, Eileen. We don't want you to cry, but you can cry. Oh, okay. This is a natural progression. So in this documentary, we saw Toni Morrison and um, Angela Davis, right? You don't really see Toni Morrison with a lot of other women, black. So she always seemed to me to be very, very quiet, very, reserved in her own world. But can we talk a little bit about black women's friendships and the healing that is found? Martha says, I'm not naturally a parent. I have to fight for each win. It's exhausting. I admire women who come by it in that authentic way. And because I'm reading comments, we can always go back and forth. So that doesn't bother me at all. Um, I'm not sure if I'm naturally a parent either. It's just something that was always, I'm probably naturally a nurturer. um, I bring people in my sphere. That part feels like it comes to me naturally, loving and hugging, and, well, not no more, no hugging, but welcoming people into this interior space. And my kids are really good at it. I think me and Kevin have done a good job with raising them with welcoming people. And so, we'll feed you, we'll love up on you. If you're broken, you can come sit at our table, sit on our couch. But being a parent was something I had to work so hard at, because and Toni's having a dialogue with Martha. And if you see anybody on Facebook in this group that you want to reach out and become friends with, please do. Unless they're a creep. If they're a creep, then I'm sorry. Right now, there's nobody that's a creep that I can see that's on here commenting. I can vouch for every person who's commented. Um, I think that if we're gonna heal ourselves, if we're gonna get free, let's talk about it. We can stick with motherhood too for this moment, and just honor the space that I started off this part talking about how people expect black women to be caretakers, and we expect black women to be, the givers. But what we fail to realize is that these things are our roles, and that we don't always have the ability to define what motherhood looks like. and what parenthood looks like. Philippa's in the comments saying, yes, her book center on friendships of women. If you don't understand the history of Black women, you don't understand the history of America. And that's from the document. I don't know why I was clapping. That really excited me. And I think that the history of Black women is as a mother, as a wife, as a kept woman, as an enslaved woman, as a friend. So Black women are probably the only women in this world who don't have the ability to be seen in layers and levels. And so because people have mammified us, we feel like, oh, you have a baby, then you're a natural mother. And so we don't make room for postpartum depression. We don't make room for having to bond with your children. We don't make room for women who are overwhelmed, right? And there's so much work in that idea of, Martha's talking about there's judgment of not being a superwoman. So today in this healing space, what I'm saying to all of us is that how do we, and this harkens back to Martha, one of your earliest comments, that ownership. If we want to own ourselves, what are the ways that we will define ourselves for ourselves? Or as Audre Lorde said, we'll be crunched into other people's fantasies of ourselves and eaten alive. I just want to take a pause. Y'all know I'm like the scarecrow from the Wiz, right? I always have these random quotes that I can just pull out, like, oh, okay. So, I teach like that. So I'm like, oh, and by the way, another person said, but there's healing in this language. Oh, so Toni is a Black English professor too. She was one of my former students. She says this reminds her of one of her favorite stories by Pearl Cleage, The Past as Prologue, in the Time Before the Men Came. Mika, we got to put that book down. The Past is Prologue and The Time Before the Men Came, like the Lyle Branch Library page as well. Joan Moorhead says, when I was in admissions, a lot of young folk, Black and white, came in wanting to see Mama or Auntie Joan. My greatest accomplishment is relating to all my kids, no matter what their background is, and they feeling they could come to me for help. Appreciate you, T, for nourishing the village. You are my shiro. I love, yes, it is Audre Lorde, Martha. That's what I said, Audre Lorde quote. Um, but Joan, I can testify to that, is one of the most amazing people I've ever met, who recently retired from her career at Monroe Community College. And my own children who went through there for their first degrees were able to benefit from her love. And so one of the things that we have to be mindful of is taking care of the women in the village. So we have somebody like Martha who's saying that she's everything to everyone, and Charmaine saying there was a period of time that she was overwhelmed and people were able to see her and recognize that we have to be mindful of our sisters. One of the things I write in a poem, and Selena, how we all write do, is I say, I'm not my sister's keeper, I'm my sister, right? And so when I look at my sister, when I look at women who may not even have the same experiences as me, but they look like me, I'm very drawn to them without judgment. Charmaine said, I'm so sad that Black women have always been boxed in others' minds, and you're so right about the struggle to find self outside of whom everyone would have you be. Yes, yes, yes. So who are we? More recently we saw the Girl Trek women were saying daughters of, and you'd have to put down a hashtag with what women you were connected to. And for me, that was very triggering. Um, I don't necessarily, I see myself as my mother's daughter, definitely. I'm my grandmother's daughter, but the word daughter is so, for me, very tricky and very it draws up a lot of emotions in me. I've always felt like I've not been anybody's daughter. My grandmother loves me dearly. She thinks I hung the moon. So, but I got a lot of love. What's the thing, Martha? And she was loved, but I've never had. And my mother loves me dearly, but I've never seen myself as somebody's daughter. And so that movement, Daughters Up, didn't necessarily resonate with me. But I think we have something that Charmaine is offering. Whose self are you? Who do you belong to, and why do you belong to you? Martha says, I have become so militant about defending my identities. Sometimes I even get lost in that. Okay, so let's stick with this for a moment. So on the one hand, we have us having identities that we are fiercely protective of, trying to come outside of spaces where other people have decided who and how Black women are supposed to be. And for me, Like, I just saw this thing earlier today. It's like, I'm not an angry black woman. I'm like, well, I am sometimes. And I resist the idea that I can't be an angry black woman. Like, I want to be pissed off sometimes. You know what I'm saying? I don't know why my volume got out. I guess I was emphasizing I was pissed off. But I think that black women is exactly it, Charmaine, that we think that we can't have all these multiple layers of expressing ourselves. And so then you have being militant about that. And I think that's what we see in Toni Morrison's writing, is that fierce militant protectiveness. Martha, if you could, I want to know what you mean by sometimes you get lost in that protecting your identity. So when I think of myself as a black woman, I'm myself first. And within that self, that umbrella of self, I am a wife, I'm a mother, I'm a granddaughter, I'm a daughter, I'm a sister, I'm an auntie, I'm a cousin, I'm a student, I'm a scholar, I'm an entrepreneur, I'm a lover, I'm a fighter, I'll fight. Um, I'm a I'm a friend, I'm a nurturer, I'm a bridge builder, but I'll also tear some stuff down. And sometimes I'm all of those things in like this overlapping Venn diagram of Takia-ness. And I remember a period of time where I was fighting with a bunch of people, a bunch of white women at my job. I had to take them on to HR with no problem. But I was looking in the mirror one day and I was like, man, you an irritating ass, Takia, because you won't let nothing go. And then I was like, you know what? If I'm going to be an irritating ass, I'm going to be an irritating ass. And I'm going to amplify it because I get to own me. And I will never downplay myself. Charmaine says, thank you for this discussion. I need this community. Sis, come on in the room. Come on in the room because we have to talk about these things. Thank y'all. I mean, without y'all, it's not a discussion. It's just me up here, flapping my soup coolers. So thank y'all. We doing this thing together. We're going to get our healing. And we're not going to die trying. We are going to get free in this season. And that means that we're going to stumble. We're going to fall. We're going to get up. We're going to share. We're going to read. We're going to cook. We're going to dance. We're going to celebrate. We're going to love. And I think that in this documentary, one of the things that really resonated me, when we talk about community, Sonia Sanchez says this. She said that we have to reimagine ourselves on this American landscape. And I thought that was so powerful. Sonia Sanchez says in the Pieces I Am documentary that we have to reimagine ourselves for this American landscape. And that's a wonderful entry point because listen, I'm not watching any of them videos. I'm not watching any of those news specials. I'm not watching any of that stuff, right? Because it's breaking my heart and my spirit. And so I have to reimagine who I am in the season of me not wanting to be informed by visual images and videos that I used to be. So Martha's clarifying, giving us some more information about how she gets lost in her identities. It's this fight and struggle to say these aren't mutually exclusive. Being mom, being daughter, etc., all of those hats and roles, and also wanting to protect my inner self, my soul and my spirit and my heart. My soul, my spirit, and my heart. Y'all know that black people, black women in particular, we have inner selves, we have souls, we have spirits, we have hearts. We are not robots. We are not a monolith. We are not things to be discarded and to be treated at will, right? So what we see in Toni Morrison's example is this definition that says, I am a woman, I am multi-layered, these identities overlap. And Martha is saying, yes, see me in the totality of myself. Sometimes I am everything. Sometimes I'm extracting some of these parts from the whole. Sometimes. But every time I'm always myself. Karen says, reimagine, not reinvent. And she was very specific about that when Sonia Sanchez, who I met, is absolutely, oh my God. I was like to put her in my pocket and walk away with her. She told me I could, but I was like, you know what? This is a little awkward. I'm walking around with this wonderful poet, this dynamic activist in my pocket. We were at a conference and she was upholding my foolishness. So, but Karen says, reimagine, not reinvent, because nothing is wrong with us. Nothing is wrong with us. Nothing is wrong with us. And some of us are sitting with ourselves for the first times in a very long time. We're in this Corona season and we're, 2020 vision. 2020 vision. I got 2020 vision. So now I got to create a brand. I got to write a book. I got to get fit. I got to cook all these healthy meals. This is the time I'm supposed to be on this wonderful sleep schedule. I'm supposed to be all of these things because people are telling me now that we have time, right? And some of us are checking and measuring ourselves, and we are trying to reinvent ourselves. But this whole thing about this season that we're in is not a reinvention, it's reimagining. Oh, Martha, she all of our friends in our head. We a whole crew. So if you could reimagine yourself, and these are things that you don't have to share with us, you can think about and they can resonate with you once we leave here. You can walk around with them with your spirit. But I want to ask you the question. If you could reimagine yourself, if you could reimagine you, and when I say yourself, I mean yourself, not yourself, yourself for this time, who and how would you be? What is the thing that you're so afraid of doing because black women or black people may not do that thing? Or maybe because you don't have enough support. I have a radio show and we're in our fourth season. And there are two people I know out of all the people who love and support me that listen to my show every week. My friend Wynette and my brother Marcus. Every single week, and now Tiana has been listening to it. She was so happy to discover it, so she's on there. And I have a lot of people that tune in, but every week we do this on the radio. And I was getting discouraged one time because I was like, oh, my family not listening. Oh, my Selena. I'm sorry, Selena. I can't listen. Selena, when we were live, because now we're taping from home, Selena would always text me during the show and have me acting a takia, actually. This is how I am. I'm always down for shenanigans. So Selena would always text and listening in. And I was discouraged for a while. I was like, oh, you know, people aren't listening to me, and they listening to somebody in the village, right? Or not Evan Dawson. I'm like, how can y'all black people support Evan Dawson? No shade, but real talk. I'm like, you got a black couple, a black family. There's 4 out of 5 members of our family that are on the show. Me, Kevin, and 2 of our children are on the show every week. We only talk to black guests. Well, we had 3 guests that were people of color, but other than that, right? But we always talk to black people, and we always talk about black issues, no matter who is on the show. And I was like, man, we talk about a book, we give you a soundtrack, we curate a playlist, we talk about healing and self-care. And the most people that would comment to me were white people. And I'm like, man, but you know what I realized? Oh, my goddaughter Nia used to listen to it all the time. She's 12 years old now. I wasn't doing it for that. And I had to check myself. I had to do it. Yes, she is a blessing. Selena is a blessing, Philippa. I had to listen to myself and remember, like, girl, you're not doing it for that. Martha says she's not trying to look busy for nobody else. I am looking to expose more and more of my inner self. Come on, we're going to release these inner chakras. We're going to release our inner selves, and we're going to give life to our full selves. Kaylani said, people have got to support their friends like they support these famous people they know. They don't know. It doesn't cost a thing to share, listen, watch, or support your people. That's right. It really doesn't. And I think in those spaces where we have good art, and that's why I'm telling people, if you have anything inside that you want, that you're sharing or you're promoting, please drop it in the comment section so that we can support that. And that's something that I had to learn. Like, it isn't difficult to share a Facebook page, or my goal for 2020 is to get 2,020 likes on our page for 2020. So 2020 and 2020. And we have some exciting things coming for you. I'm trying to get this bookstore, this black-owned bookstore. I only want it in one block. So that's and Corona got me not wanting anybody to touch my books, but I promise you it will materialize and manifest itself. I have been having my husband drive me up and down the street, and I tell him and the kids when they leave the house that whenever they go down this particular block of the city, that they have to tell the universe to open up, right, for us to get this space. And because it's going to be all of our space to get. Oh, Rachel, I can't. If you are in a watch party, that's what I want. If you're in a watch party, you separate from me, and I can't see any other comments in there. I didn't learn that until last week when last month, Mika is a co-host, and she had a watch party, and I can't see any other comments. Right. I don't know why Facebook does that. Drop a couple in here, Rachel. We sorry. I wonder where you were. I was shouting you out, but I'm like, well, maybe she just enjoying it. But no, I can't see. So tell y'all watch party friends that I can't see any of the comments. Only the ones in this particular realm. I want to look for. It's almost 7 o'clock already. We almost done, y'all. Oh, Rachel, you said you commenting away. I know that's what I figured you were. Let's see. Um. Oh, Oprah said that Toni Morrison shows us through pain the myriad of ways we can love. Okay, look at Tiana, her black-owned bookstore. You better stop because I'm going to need a bed in the back. Oh, you going to be working. Ain't no sleeping on the job, Tiana. So, yeah, ma'am. You got a job, daughter. Charmaine says it's already done. I believe that. I receive that. Amen. God's got you and your vision. I believe that. We are going to have a beautiful legacy for us Black people. I'm standing on the shoulders of so many of the elders in this community who've already had bookstores, the Ahmeds, Gaya Shakes, the Rivers, and I'm going to bring something. Me and the village are going to bring the Soulstainable Living bookstore to you all, and it will be Black owned, and we'll only have Black books in there. Black children's books, adult books, young adult books. And it's gonna be small at first because y'all not gonna have me and my book sitting on the corner and got evicted. But that's one of the ways that I'm trying to materialize myself, right? And my inner self, Martha. You're talking about this freedom, and this being true to who you are. And I've been. Oh, Tiana, you start now. You don't even know you're working right now. And so when I start thinking about I was overwhelmed the other day. I was sitting down and I was thinking about my mother and her children, and we've been through so much. We've been through so much, and our hearts have been broken over and over again, particularly this past year. Um, but I was celebrating something. I finished up my first year in my doctoral program, and I was telling my husband, like, "Yo, I'm doing it. Like, I'm an author. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm a professor, a tenured associate professor. I have a radio show. I'm talking to y'all, right? And I get so grateful that I'm here. Rachel says, when I get overwhelmed, I re-watch The Pieces I Am. It is Toni Morrison, but also all the other people who inspired me to own my superpowers as I support the people, other people's superpowers, as well as my frailties. I love you back, Toni, as well as my frailties. So Rachel, I told y'all, has watched this over and over again. And I think that when I look at Toni Morrison, when I watch Pieces I Am, or when I read her novels, it reminds me of her. It reminds me of the people that inspired me, but it also reminds me of myself. Right? Does that make sense? Because I don't always have enough words to define who I am. And I remember Tempest, like I said, one of my other babies, I had sent her a picture when the Girl Trek did their talk with Angela Davis and Nikki Giovanni. So I sent her and Kaylani a picture of me with Angela Davis at an event I had hosted. Shout out to Noni Silas for bringing her here. And then a picture of me and Nikki Giovanni at the same conference that I said I saw Sonia Sanchez in. And Selena got me roped up in the foolishness. I was telling her Selena loved her. So I was following her. I was sitting behind her. Thank you, Carmen. And I said, can I show you my phone? So I show her this phone. I'm like, oh, my friend, say hi. So when I sent Tempest and Kaylani this picture, Tempest says, oh my goodness, they're so lucky to have met you. And I think I almost broke into, they said the pieces I am. I almost broke into a million pieces because the idea that this person who loves me would see me as someone that these two great sheroes, right, would be happy to know. Like, are you kidding me? Like, each of us. I think about me and Martha, our inbox conversations, and the way that she loves her children so fiercely and so protectively, right? There's somebody in the world who is grateful to know you. And so many times we spend our energy, celebrating celebrity culture or celebrating other people. We have everything we need right in our community. Rachel is doing the Blackout series. So if you go to 21st Century Arts, you can her Facebook page. Rachel, type it down in the comment section. There's a Blackout section. On July 4th, she'll be doing the Blackout series, rather. There's like a bunch of different series, but the next one is July 4th, and this will be socially distanced. I think at the Flying Squirrel, but she'll share that with us in the comment section. Tiana, listen to me. She said that story is amazing, gave me chills. I didn't even see myself. I thought I was doing a little light flex, like, oh, look at me with Angela Davis, look at me with Nikki Giovanni. And she said, look at you. Period. And so I think that one of the things that we have to do as Black folks in our healing spaces is that we have to recognize we are who we are. And everybody can't see everything that we've been through. So I think that sometimes when we walk through our lives, we see ourselves because we know all the things that we've been through. But we don't always know that the people that look up to us and admire us, even as much as we're transparent with them, they only see us. And it's okay that they see the lumps, the bumps, the bruises, the keloid scars, the bumps, the divots, all of that stuff. That's fine, and they love us still, and we have to be the same kind of compassionate to ourselves. Rachel posted her page. Please like her page. It's 21st Century Arts Activating Justice. So you can go right to the Facebook page and you can like for more information. You can join our mailing list for the Blackout Summer Series. We're doing an event also August, I think August 8th. It's a Saturday. Um, I don't know what day it is, but it's Black People Caucus, a Black only space. We don't know, but watch this space. We'll have another. I'll talk again in July about this. Carolyn says you're such an inspiration. I appreciate you and your discussions. Thank you for sharing yourself. I learned so much each time I tune in. Oh, thank y'all. You know, when I'm in my classroom and I'm talking to my students, I tell my business. I'm like, look, y'all. I know y'all going Google goggle over me right now, but let me tell you, I have been through some things, and you can get up. You can get up and you can be broken and bent, and you can have somebody that just does exactly like the 6 mile woman, 5 mile woman. How many miles was it? Did for 6 and she gathered him the pieces that he was and gave them to him in the right order. Like, you don't have to think that being broken means that you are no good. Like, I can be like, oh, I had a child at 19. Me and my siblings were separated from each other. We didn't grow up together. We had to find out. I and my other brother had to keep us together, right? That I could say so many things. I didn't have any children while I was married. I had all my kids before I got married. I went back to school. I got my associate's degree. Then I went back to school and got a bachelor's degree. Then I got a master's degree. And now I'm in a doctoral program. But I'm still Takia. Anytime I can help people, I help people, right? And I'm not ashamed of any person that I am. Everything that I am, the pieces I am, I gather me. And I put myself back together sometimes. And when I'm feeling frail, while I'm feeling broken, while I'm feeling inside out, I still know that I have value. I'm gonna take Charmaine for instance. She'll take a piece of jewelry and say, "Oh, this used to be this thing, and now it's this new thing." It's a reimagining. Sonia Sanchez told us about it. It's not a reinvention, it's a reimagining. So when you look at me, you see all the women who've come before me, but you also see the women who are walking beside me, and you see the women who are coming behind me. I see my student Toni on here. I love her like cook food. I've always shared myself. We sit in concert with each other talking about love and life. I share my marriage. I share my love, whatever I can, because I think so many times we are so afraid of being judged that we hold ourselves off from people. But in this season, we're going to get free. We're not going to die trying. You get that same dynamic from all the people featured in the pieces I am. They all have their own past, but they are interconnected in ways that frees them and sustains them. This is us. Me and Rachel's work have overlapped for the past few years in the community. And over the past season, she and I have developed a closeness. And we bring other people in that space. We share our children with each other. This is us interconnected. All of the people on here, we have found some ways to be able to intermingle our lives in order there's an interconnected thread that binds us all together. I see your vision, Charmaine. I am your vision, right? When I see you, Sister Charmaine, I understand that you are doing something that's greater than yourselves. And so if we don't get something from this life together, this 2020 season of perfect vision, we have to see ourselves first. And I have to do it too. Sometimes I will look at myself and I'll be all upside down, inside out, and I have to use my daughter as my mirror. And I think that Toni Morrison's example shows us that we can't always look into our own eyes and our own mirrors and know the truth about ourselves. That sometimes we got to bring in those other people that Rachel was talking about are unconnected, because they're going to tell you the truth about yourself. Toni said, "This is everything you didn't know I needed today. Thank you for holding this space. Thank you to everyone in the village for your experiences. This was rich. I mean, I can't even put into words. I am inspired. I am loved. Thank you. You are inspired and you are loved." Yes, and we only go a few more minutes. I keep it to just above over an hour, because I want you to walk away from this space. Let me look and see it. I had so many things to talk about, but I never. And she was loved, and she was loved. How are y'all loved? How are you loving? I'm gonna say I love my friends as if they were my biological sisters. I love my biological sisters with everything that I have in me as well. I love my husband and my children. I love my family. I love the village. I love Black people. I love the global village of other people who love me in return. And Tiana says, literally never want this convo to end. I don't know why she fronting, because we jump right in a live, or what's not on live, FaceTime, all the time and talk together. But when people see me, I want me to be like bubbling up with love. And I want y'all to know that, like, I I really believe in Black people. And I think that we have been sold a disservice. We have been done wrong by a world that doesn't understand who we are. But we have to understand who we are. And Martha's in the comment section. Toni says, "We'll be here. Part 2 will work. And we are loved and we love." Oh, Toni and Tiana, LaToni and Tiana, can y'all please friend each other? Because I want y'all to partner. Y'all about the same age, and y'all in the same area. So I need y'all to friend each other on Facebook. So LaToni Chrome's friend Tiana Velasquez Smith, or vice versa. Just friend each other. Y'all won't be sorry for it. And anybody else in here, Philippa and I met professionally, and she and I have established some connection. She's still going to read a story for me when the story time opens back up, at the bookstore. Gonna have the bookstore. But I just want you to know, as we close out today, that Black people are the most abundantly rich people in this world, that we have so many gifts and talents, but the problem is that we are looking at the wrong metric. And if I am what Toni says I am, love strongly radiates off of me, that's my superpower. Like, no, if somebody breaks my spirit or hurts my heart or hurts my feelings, because sometimes people do. I cry tears over people a lot. I'm a cry baby. I cry all the time. Um, Oh, they understand it threatens their very being. Yes. What I say to them is, I stop loving them, but I love everybody else even more. Like, you will never stop me from loving people. Karen, when I tell you I am a lover of people, and it might sound the pettiest, I'm like, oh, I'm not gonna stop loving everybody else. I'm just not gonna love you. I'm gonna love them even more. So give me your portion, and I'm gonna divvy that up with the village that's still left. I never have run out of people to love, and I never have run out of love to give. And who laughing in the comments? Oh yeah, she gonna shoot your inbox. Okay, bookstore 2020 goals. Okay, y'all. So this is what we're gonna manifest for this year. We're trying to get the Soulstainable Living bookstore. I really want it. It's gonna be in the city. It's gonna be a small space. Well, I ain't gonna say that. It's gonna be the space that we need it to be. I have so many books already, but those are my books. Sorry. But it's gonna be ours, and it's going to be another place for continued healing. We have the Soulstainable Living presents the Black Healing Project. If y'all love this, like y'all say y'all do, can y'all go and invite your friends to my page? And just, okay, don't go and invite them to the group. Click the invite friends and invite them that way, please. I'm trying to get 2020 likes this year. I'm at 18 something. I think I have like 130 to go to get to 2000. But before we go, I also want to shout out again Rachel's 21st Century Arts Injustice. I want to shout out Island Gal Creations, Charmaine's business. Eileen didn't put her information in here, but she is an educational consultant. And so Tiana, if any of you become her friend, she's been this today. She just did a workout, and she raised money that she donated this week to I forgot you donated to this week. I just had it into my Teen Empowerment. And so she was able to do that. So we're also on my page always doing the anybody got a dollar. raising, giving me $1 so that we can give it to anybody else. It's that guerrilla giving. Everything that we need for our own healing, we have in the village. We are uniquely qualified and prepared. So do not believe the narratives. Do not believe the narratives that, thank y'all. Do not believe the narratives that we don't have enough love for each other. I am a representation that even in our broken places and spaces, that we still have enough. And that enough will always feed our spirits and our souls. We just have to remember that Black people are the center of the universe and not worry about what other people say to us. Stop watching all of those videos. You can be informed without allowing those things to be able to permeate your spirit. We have to understand that there are too many things that we feed our bodies and our minds and our spirits, but we can always get full off of a steady appetite of love. Karen, I love you as well. Thank y'all for trying to help me get to 2020. Soulstainable Living presents the Black Healing Project will be out very, very soon. I love you all. I'm so grateful. Thank you for spending this hour and 10 minutes today with me on a Sunday. We'll be back next month, the last Sunday of the month. I think we're going to go back to books. I'm sure we are. But I gotta find some books that are not traumatic. I don't know, y'all. We might be reading a children's book together, so get ready to relive your childhood. Maybe we'll talk about our hair. But thank you all so very much. Stay safe. Have a wonderful week that's as beautiful as you are. I love you, and I'm so grateful to you all. Thank you so very much.